you and President Obama one-on-one, who wins?
Now? I don't know. I don't know how quick he is anymore. If I could get open for a mid-range jumper, I'm deadly for mid-range. The problem I'd have is he's taller than me. He's long.
Yes.
And so I imagine if I couldn't shake him, if I'm not fast enough to shake him, which I'm probably not, he'd be able to block even that mid-range jumper.
So you need someone to set a little pick and pop play.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, man, he's in shape. He's working out every day.
You seem like you're in good shape.
Decent, but you know.
This is Talk Easy. I'm Sam Fragoso. Welcome to the show. Governor Shapiro, thank you for being here.
It's good to be here.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thanks, man. I'm a fan, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
We have so much ground to cover and 90 minutes to do it, so I don't want to waste any time. We're talking around the one-year anniversary of the attack on the governor's residence in Harrisburg, which occurred, I think, just a few hours after you and your family observed the first night of Passover.
Yeah.
This is also where you begin your new book, Where We Keep the Light. And I want to talk about that evening and everything that preceded it. But first, how have you and your family, you got 4 kids, right?
Yeah.
How have you all managed these last 11 months? How are you guys doing?
I appreciate you asking. I think our country, unfortunately, has grown too accustomed to seeing political violence and then seeing the physical effects of it. The death, most recently, of Melissa Hortman, the former speaker in Minnesota, the death of Charlie Kirk in Utah. And then we've seen other politicians survive the attacks. Steve Scalise, Gabby Giffords, just 2 examples. Thank God my family and I got out physically unharmed. But we've, if I'm being candid, we've dealt with the sort of emotional challenges from that.
Now, what does that look like?
It looks different for each of us. My wife and I are blessed with 4 kids, 24. This is the problem with 4 kids. You don't always remember. 24, our son's about to turn 21, 17, and 15.
Okay.
And so everybody kind of processes it differently. I think for us, now that the residence is rebuilt and we're able to be back in there and kind of get back into some semblance of normalcy and just kind of like do normal things and not talk about it, that's been maybe the most important thing to heal. I will tell you as a parent, there's no, playbook for this. There's no textbook. And so what Laura and I tried to do is just be really honest with our kids, answer every question they had. And obviously the questions were different for each of our, kids based on their age. And we just told them everything we knew. So much so that at one point Laura said, so we're just doing this? We're just telling them, It's like, I think so. I think that's what you're supposed to do. I don't know. But
my parents did a similar thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had some divorces. Everything was on the table.
You just be really honest. I never wanted my kids, I'm sorry to go on and on. I'm sure you have a million more questions, but I never wanted my kids to feel like I knew something that I was like holding back on them. And I think we've come through the process. We're stronger. We've had some honest conversations about risk. We had some honest conversations before I decided to run for re-election. But we're all in it. We're all in it together. And I will say this, and then I'll stop, Sam. I know you have more questions. We're not afraid. Like we don't spend our days afraid or kind of looking over our shoulder. We're conscious. We're careful. We've got a different kind of security protocol, but we're not afraid.
Were you afraid in the immediate aftermath?
I think what was hard in the first, sort of 24 or so hours was when the person or people, it ended up being one person, but we didn't know at the time, when they hadn't been captured yet, just sort of making sure our kids knew they were safe, they were secure where they were. And then once he was apprehended and we realized he was acting alone, I think it was easier to begin the feeling of not feeling scared. But I will tell you, just recently, in the last couple of weeks, 3 weeks, someone else was arrested for stalking our family and making terroristic threats. So it's around us. We're mindful of that, but we don't live in fear.
You know, in the immediate aftermath, your son Reuben asked you if someone tried to kill us because we were Jewish,
Yeah.
which I can only imagine was a terribly painful question for a young kid to ask, and an even harder question for a father to answer.
Yeah.
In the intervening year, you know, reports have come out that Cody Balmer planned to physically assault you with a sledgehammer. He used Heineken beer bottles as Molotov cocktails and threw them in the house. And when he called 911, he said, quote, "Governor Shapiro needs to know that Cody Balmer will not take part in his plans for what he wants to do to the Palestinian people."
Yeah.
In the intervening year, how have you come to understand the why behind this attack? And most importantly, how do you answer that question that your son asked now?
Mm-hmm. I guess I have to go by what this individual said. Look, he's behind bars now for up to 50 years. He was convicted of attempted murder. He was convicted of aggravated arson, a whole lot more. I guess I just have to accept what he said. And obviously what he said is rooted in some sort of anti-Semitism, anti-Jewishness, what have you.
Well, and why are you reluctant to say that?
Because I've never talked to him. I don't know. I know the statements he made to the police, and I'm certainly not holding back on you, Sam. I just don't know what's in someone's heart. So I want to be conscious of that. I mean, he was convicted, and so I think I'm on firm ground to opine. But I think for my kids, they're mindful that their dad, because the job he's in, is a target, and because of how open we are about who we are and how we practice our faith, that at least in today's world, that makes us even more of a target. I think what the most important lesson I'm trying to impart on my kids is to not be afraid of who you are, to be honest about who you are, to not let anyone take that away from you. By the way, whatever that is,
right?
You never want someone to be able to rob you of who you are and being yourself. And so I think what we've tried to be clear with Reuben about and all of our kids is, look, this is what this person said. But we're going to continue to live proudly as to who we are. We're not going to let anybody take that away from us.
You know, faith has always been important to you. I mean, a real source of inspiration.
Yeah.
Dating back to Saturday mornings at the Beth Shalom Synagogue in Elkin Park, which is where I believe you and your family went throughout your childhood.
Yeah. We actually still go there.
I heard that. So tell me this, like, your father was a pediatrician.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one that everyone around the neighborhood relied on.
Yeah.
And your mother, she was a school teacher and activist who demonstrated to you, quote, "There was no task she wasn't willing to do, no person she wasn't willing to help. And as much as I respected how she showed up," you write, "I was also bewildered by it, because the person that she was as a teacher and pillar in the community was sometimes different from the one I knew at home."
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that gap you're describing?
Yeah, I respect and love my parents so much. Thank God they're still with us. And part of the reason why I respect them so much is they're two people that the community sort of looked toward for help, right? My dad for medical help for their kid. Right? He was like literally a pediatrician for the entire community. And my mom, who was a school teacher in Philadelphia until she had me and stayed home raising me and my siblings, and then became this really prominent activist. They taught me so much about caring about other people and the world around me. And I didn't understand it at the time, but honestly, I think you could draw a through line between how they raised me and the job I'm in today.
I think so.
The work I've committed myself to. And my mom would show up at school and teach us about these kids called Soviet Jewish refuseniks who were like living in the Soviet Union, not free. And like, we didn't know where the hell the Soviet Union was. We didn't even understand what not being free meant. We're 6 and 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. But she had this unbelievable way of helping us understand it and care about it. And so my mom lives this wonderful life of purpose and meaning and support and help for others. At the same time, my mom had a really rough childhood. And I think that continues to impact her to this day with some real mental health struggles. It doesn't make me love my mom any less. Actually, makes me love her even more. And she's someone who just really helped me see and understand that there was a world around me that I needed to give a damn about.
What was the part that you felt like kind of bewildered by in growing up? I heard you say often, you're the oldest of three. I'm also the oldest of three. And the descriptions you give in the book, I know painfully, intimately well.
Okay.
I've heard you describe yourself as a protector who often sought solutions for your younger siblings. But what did the problems look and sound like in your house?
I think given my mom's challenges growing up, which by the way, Sam, is her story to tell, not mine, but she lived a childhood with a lot of challenges and a lot of trauma. And I think that led to a household that was incredibly loving for me and my brother and sister, but also kind of chaotic. And so when I would see the chaos coming or the yelling coming, I would want to protect my brother and sister from that. I'd want to shield them from that. And I want to be really clear, it wasn't abusive for us or anything like that, but it was chaotic and it was stressful.
Chaotic about having 3 kids? Or
I think just, chaotic about sort of daily, tasks that would be complicated by my mom's challenges that would manifest itself sometimes in yelling, manifest itself sometimes in just sort of like chaos. And I've worked, really hard as a kid to protect my siblings from that. And Lori and I have worked really hard in our lives to model a different kind of behavior around our children.
Would you ever invite friends over?
No. And that was hard. I mean, when you're a kid, right? Like you want to have your buddies over to play and this and that. Now,
yeah, you're trying to play pickup basketball.
Yeah. I mean, most of the time I was a big outdoor sports guy. So most of the time you'd be hanging out outside, playing hoops, baseball. We lived up the street from a park. So we'd go there and play pickup games a lot. But I wouldn't bring the kids back home to our house.
And why was that?
Again, it was not the most sort of stable environment at home, and it was kind of not a part of my life I really wanted to share with others. I mean, I'll just go back to something you said a moment ago, Sam. This book is really the first time I've ever shared that story of how I grew up, and I felt a responsibility to sort of share this with my folks and with my siblings ahead of time, before we turned it in, to be published. And to your point, it's very interesting to hear my siblings have a kind of different perspective at times on how they were raised and what the childhood was like. And
how did they read it?
I will say it was hard for me to write this. I'm sure it was hard for them to kind of confront it and read it, for the first time. But I think in being open and honest about who you are, and folks understanding kind of what motivates you, I think it paints a clearer picture as to why I do what I do. I've dedicated my life to serving others. And for as challenging as that might have been growing up, I credit my mom and my pop for sending me on this path and for guiding me and for giving me the virtues and the skills and the know-how and the desire to go out and serve others.
I heard you say in another interview that at the end of this book, you want your mother to know that the governor before me today is only here because of what she did for you growing up.
Without question. I hope she'd read the book and see that she's a hero.
Has she read it?
I don't want to speak for her. No, I'll answer any of your questions about me and all that.
That sounds like she hasn't gotten around to it.
No, I know she's aware of the book, and I know she's seen it, and I know she's read it. I'm just not here to comment for her.
Well, it took my mom about 3 to 4 years before she really liked the podcast, so I understand.
Come on, Ma, you should watch this podcast.
She's going to watch this episode with you.
All right, good.
I guarantee. We can move on. So from those experiences, do you think that's kind of where you start embarking on this problem-solving path, a life of service, and really a job where you can attempt to control the conditions, the environment around you?
100% yes. But I'd be lying to you if I said I understood that,
of course,
at the time. I mean, look, I didn't set out to be in politics. I sure as hell. If you'd have asked my wife in the 9th grade, hey, look around our entire class, which one of these people is going to be governor of Pennsylvania, I might have been last on her list. So I'm not like one of these people that kind of had it all
Yeah.
plotted out.
You were hoping to be point guard for the 76ers.
Yeah, man, and a doctor at the same time. It's going to be the first Jewish doctor in the NBA. None of that worked
Real
out,
combo.
by the way.
Well, back then, some of the players used to be plumbers in the summer.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you could have maybe
I'm not
made
that
work.
old, man, but okay.
Sorry, way back when. So it was in black and white.
No, but it's as I wrote this book and sort of pieced all these different episodes, experiences together in my life, it became much clearer, that through line, and you can draw it straight back to the way mom and dad raised me.
The first political position you ran for was student body president in January of 1990.
Yeah, you had to bring that up.
Did you run for office to represent your fellow classmates or to impress a girl?
The latter. It was to impress a girl. I don't know why I thought this was going to impress Lori. It didn't.
You were already a point guard.
I know. I don't know why.
On the basketball team. I think that was enough.
No. And by the way, I named names. I named the two people that finished ahead of me. I finished a distant third to Ami Eden and Hannah Richmond. But
this is the only election you've lost.
Yeah, man. I'm 12-1. That's
and
the
who,
one loss.
Who beat you again?
Ami Eden. Still hurts to this day.
Is there a plaque somewhere?
I'm sure he would hang one up.
I'm
if
sure he
could.
has.
Yeah. Yeah, he reminds me of it.
The two of you, you and Lori, the two of you met in high school.
Mm-hmm. In the ninth grade.
In the ninth grade. And then you both kind of make the prudent decision, I think, to break up before you go to college. She goes to Colgate.
I would say both is an overstatement. I think like a little more her calling for the break than me, but go ahead.
So she broke up with future Governor Josh Shapiro.
Yeah.
You go to University of Rochester,
Mm-hmm.
heartbroken, find your way to the library, a word processor, and begin to write a letter to Lori. It goes something like, in the book you write, I was Shakespeare composing a sonnet.
Yeah.
I was Taylor Swift before Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
I was Lloyd Dobler and Say Anything.
You remember that scene?
Of course.
Come on, with the boombox.
In a trench coat with the boombox over my head, I was getting the girl back.
Yeah. I wrote the greatest love note of all time.
So did you get her back?
I wrote the love note. I went to the post office. This is like post office days, man. There's no email or anything. And I stuck in the envelope and I bought the stamp. I licked the envelope. I mailed it. And I figured, because she was in college in upstate New York, 2 days to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming day 3, day 4, I'm getting the call, or maybe she's just going to drive right to me, right? And just like run into my arms, and that would be that.
This is the teenage Josh Shapiro fantasy.
That was it. I never heard from her about it until we were home months later. Our families were friends. We were at like a family meal, and I said, hey, I wrote you this note. Make sure you got it. I got it. I was like, okay, I just kind of was hoping you might, reply.
Pit in your stomach.
As it turns out, she got the letter in that first 2 days, read it, thought it was so, as she likes to say, extra. She invited all of her girlfriends together for a dramatic reading of this letter. And I know that because over the years, not only have her friends reminded me of that, but we were at her 30th college reunion, and all of her friends there were quoting passages from that letter, busting my balls.
And I've heard you tell this story, and I read it in the book. When they come up to you 30 years later, quoting passages, you got to give me some lines from this.
I mean, and it was like,
what's the one your wife makes fun of you for?
The one she makes fun of, we're a big tree and our branches are always crossing, and as we grow, they'll continue to stay connected. Man, it was bad. It was bad. But I loved her. And by the way, as I tell all of her friends who bust my balls, I got the girl. Yeah. Right? 28 years later, we're doing okay. Doing okay.
She calls you extra. I've heard you say that. Yeah. Is that a fair characterization?
I think at times I can be extra.
Tell me what that looks like. You're getting overly emotional about something?
I get very emotional.
Well, you're on Talk Easy. You can be emotional.
Yeah. I get emotional about Lori and the kids. I get emotional about the work I do. I get pissed when people are getting taken advantage of. Mm-hmm. And I get very emotional when we have like sort of these moments where we just connect as a family, or where Laura and I connect, or where you have that moment with your kid that you feel like you just want to capture and hold on to. So we joke that, for a birthday, anniversary, whatever, I will write her long cards and whatever, and she will buy a card and just write "Love, Lori." And I'm like, why don't you write something more? She's like, because the card says it all. So anyway,
one day she's going to write you a card, and it's going to be, "We're like a tree with the branches."
That's when I know I'm in trouble.
Yes, that's when divorce is imminent. That's how you know. I think your motto as governor is what is it? GSD?
Yeah, get shit done. We could say shit on this.
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah,
you can curse. You can cry.
Okay.
You can do both at me if you need to.
No, we're good. Get shit done.
I think it's the thing that I like maybe the most about you, and I've
not the love note that I wrote. That was not appealing.
That's a distant second.
Okay.
And I do mean distant. I'm the oldest of 4, and this summer my youngest sister is going to be graduating from college. Am I proud of her? Of course. Do I feel a little bit old? Obviously. But for the big day, I'm planning to head back to Chicago and be there in person. It's something I've been looking forward to for a while, although I now realize that I never actually told her about these plans. And if you are learning about this from this podcast ad, I'm very, very sorry. Look, the reality is I don't see my family in Chicago too often. And I'd like to stay longer than just a few days, not just fly in and fly out for the weekend, but actually build in some time to catch up and hang out. Naturally, this makes me think, because I'm an overthinker, what about my place in Los Angeles? Like, if I'm not there, shouldn't somebody be enjoying my apartment? That's why I like the idea of hosting it on Airbnb while I'm out of town. Instead of doing a bunch of mental math while I'm traveling, and trust me, I will, I could spend less time ruminating and more time being present with my family, and friends, and loved ones, knowing that my home in Los Angeles is making money to help offset the time away. Less time worrying about logistics, more time celebrating and just enjoying the moment. Once you host on Airbnb while traveling, you won't want to do it any other way. Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host. With tax season upon us, you might be in the throes of a whole lot of personal accounting. Especially when you're running your own business, this time of year comes with a lot of financial reflection. I know it very well, having run Talk Easy as long as I have. Simplify your finances with Monarch. Monarch is the all-in-one personal finance tool designed to make your life easier. It brings your entire financial life, budgeting, accounts and investments, net worth and future planning, together in one dashboard either on your laptop or on your phone. Feel aware and in control of your finances this tax season and get 50% off your Monarch subscription with code TALKEASY. I've been using Monarch since last fall, and it's become a real part of my everyday planning. I like how it isn't just about tracking spending. It actually creates a full picture of my financial activity, for better or worse, that helps me achieve my financial goals. It's become a part of my admin routine that, I hate to admit, I actually look forward to. And unlike most personal finance apps, it's built to make you proactive, not reactive. And if you like to go out to dinner with friends, splitting the bill has never been easier. Just scan and upload a receipt, and Monarch will automatically sort items and prices for you. Then you can share a link or QR code with your group, and everyone can settle the bill effortlessly. Achieve your financial goals for good with Monarch, the all-in-one tool that makes money management simple. Use code TALKEASY at monarch.com for half off your first year. That's 50% off at monarch.com, code TALKEASY. In the lead up to the 2024 election, when you were being vetted to join the Harris ticket, you were given a lot of grief over this op-ed you wrote in college, saying that peace will never come in the Middle East. Quote, Palestinians will not coexist peacefully. They are too battle-minded to be able to establish a peaceful homeland on their own. They will grow tired of fighting amongst themselves and will turn outside against Israel. Now, there are many things I believe and wrote and said at 20 that I don't believe today. I don't even know if I believe them at 21.
Yeah.
And I know you've long said your thinking around the issue has evolved since college.
Big time.
Thank God we all evolved since college. But I've never heard you talk about how or why your thinking evolved. Like, who or what contributed to your evolution on the matter of Israel-Palestine?
Yeah. And just to, I know this isn't like a policy show, but just to level set, I mean, probably for the last 15 or more years, I've been someone who supports a two-state solution. Israel, Palestinians living side by side, peacefully recognizing one another's right to exist.
You've called Netanyahu many times one of the worst leaders of all time.
Awful. So I know we're not here to get in all that, but you asked me a question about evolution. Like
no, the context is important. I want people to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I don't remember writing that, but I'm certain when I wrote that, I believed that. And as time went on and I saw the humanity on all different sides of this, you can't help but have your views evolve. I'll give you an example maybe that crystallizes it even more. When I ran for state representative, when I ran for attorney general, I was pro-death penalty. And by the way, honestly held. And I said that the death penalty should be only used in the most heinous of cases. And I believed that. I looked people in the eye and I told them that, and that's how I felt. After I got elected attorney general, I'm sure we'll get into that later, but I began to learn different aspects of the justice system that, quite frankly, I didn't know about when I made those statements earlier. I began to be confronted with the decision of having to pursue the death penalty as a prosecutor. And I had to ultimately confront my child, who was 11 years old, who said, "Dad, we don't have the death penalty in Pennsylvania, do we?" And
was that Max?
That was Max. And I said, "Well, yeah, buddy, we do." And he goes, "Well, I don't understand. How does it make sense that the punishment for killing someone is to kill them? How does that solve the problem?" And man, when your kid challenges you to think about something different, when a system you get an up-close view of challenges you, you can't help but evolve. And so look, I think it's one thing when leaders kind of flip-flop in our politics, they put their finger in the wind, they see which way it's blowing and they go that way. That I don't have a lot of respect for politicians that way. But I do respect people that go out and listen and learn and then come, forward as to how their views have changed and why. And I think that example of the high school, or I guess the college essay that you cited versus where I've been really for the last, whatever it's been, 15 or so years, speaks volumes about my willingness to listen, evolve and learn.
100%. And that's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
I think the idea that people are fixed and set in stone is a terrible precedent.
Yeah.
And you'll get, everything will be intractable if we live like that.
And by the way, the postscript to that story with Max was, I went out and announced that I was changing my position on the death penalty. And as governor, I've put a moratorium on the death penalty in place. So I just share that as examples of how I think we all have both a responsibility and I think human beings have a capacity to evolve and change. And I think we need more of that and less rigidity.
You write in the book, "I don't bend to current public sentiment or political pressure. My principles are held honestly. They're not just going to be shaken by what's popular or in favor or by who shouts the loudest on social media."
Yeah.
So give me an instance, whether as governor or attorney general, where you put the people of Pennsylvania before politics, where you bucked political pressure, maybe even from insiders, and did something that you believed was right for your constituents, even if it was not politically advantageous.
I mean, I think I've kind of pride myself on how I always put people first, even if it's against the sort of political winds. But I'll share one example with you. After the horrific killing of George Floyd, which I think we can all agree was horrific. I'm glad the former police officer is in prison for what he did. There were righteous protests in Philly and all across Pennsylvania. And I was the attorney general of Pennsylvania at the time. And as those protests continued, folks began to show up to those protests chanting, defund the police, having signs and what have you. And immediately I said, well, actually, the answer to the unconstitutional policing we just saw in Minnesota is not to defund the police, but actually to invest more in the police, to make sure they're properly trained, to make sure they look like the communities they were sworn to protect and serve. And I got to tell you, man, for years, I got a lot of political shit for that. I got a lot of threats from, some folks in my party, and I got a lot of people who were attacking me online. But at the end of the day, I was listening to the people in the communities who were scared.
And what were you hearing?
That our streets aren't safe. And we want more police. And we want them to protect our constitutional rights, but we want them to get the bad guys. And we want them to make sure our kids can go out and play. We want to make sure that our parents can be able to walk home with their walkers or in their wheelchair and not worry about getting assaulted or accosted.
Mm.
And I heard those voices from the community, not just the loud voices on Twitter or whatever, but the people in the community who were desirous of safe communities and constitutional policing.
Mm.
And I felt that I could put that together. And so I took a beating politically on that for a while. But in the end, by the way, most of the folks kind of came around to where we were.
Mm.
Hire more police, train them properly, spend millions of dollars on their training, make sure they look like the communities they're sworn to protect, treat them with respect, and then hold them accountable if they do something wrong. I think that's common sense. I think that's ultimately where we got to in Pennsylvania. But make no mistake, that was not the politically popular thing to say at the time.
And you're willing to make those risks.
Yeah, every day. Every day. Look, I got a job to do. And an oath of office I take to the people of Pennsylvania, to our Constitution, to protect the rule of law, to protect them, to look out for them. And sometimes in doing so, you don't necessarily make fans on social media, but as long as you can, when you put your head on the pillow at night, know you did the right thing by those folks, the thing that you think was right, the thing that you think was, a move that was done with integrity, then at the end of the day, that's all you can do in these jobs.
Now, Governor, you can probably tell by now, I do an obsessive amount of research.
Yeah. And
the thing that struck me over and over again in reading profiles of you, and you mentioned in the book, there's this great line you have from a local legislator who says, "Hey, Shapiro, you can't get there from here."
Oh, man, it's a great story.
And it speaks to your ambition. It speaks to your tenacity. It speaks to your ability to focus. And over again, in every profile written about you, and I know you've read this, I know you know this, there are just quotes after quotes from people like Representative Joe Hoffel, former boss of yours, who says you don't want to turn your back on him. Loyalty is not his strong suit. Political consultant Larry Kaiser in Philly Magazine, nothing will get in his way or distract from that focus. A colleague from that time also described you as having destructive aggression. And I can go on and on and on and read the quotes. I know you've read them. I know you know them. Are these fair characterizations of how you operate?
Yeah. I haven't heard some of those, but I'm happy to respond to the point of your question. Look, I am driven. I'm driven to get shit done. I'm driven to serve other people. I am not driven by sort of blind ambition to get a particular job. In fact, I think what a lot of readers find interesting about this book is how many times I didn't run for the office that maybe someone assumed was next.
The Senator Schumer in Pennsylvania, pushing you to run for Senate, you don't do it.
I don't do it. And it's because what I've come back to each time is how can I best serve others? How can I do it in a way that allows me to still be a good father and a good husband and be present for my family? And how can I have the most impact on the situation or on the community or on the district or whatever the case may be?
I think the book makes exceptionally clear that you come by your life of service honestly.
Yeah.
And I believe that. I'm not questioning that. I'm wondering, why do you seem to have a kind of infinite capacity for being name called?
Yeah, look, I don't know. I guess there's some people that are jealous. A whole lot of unnamed people that love to say stuff or, whatever. But
those people were even named.
I understand. Actually, the one guy, Representative Huffle, who you mentioned, I wrote about that in the book. And I talked about how he was at a moment in his career where he had to decide if he was going to continue on in a race where he was not favored and not particularly popular at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I made clear I'd never run against him, right? But I wasn't going to sort of run with him. And I was prepared to step up and run if he stepped aside. And I write very candidly in the book. I'm sure that kind of left a sting or I forget exactly what word I used, but that left a bad taste in his mouth. I understand that. He said that. He has said, different things since, but that was a comment he made. It doesn't make me feel good that other people might have been upset, at the time. But
what does it make you feel?
I mean, look, I have been focused throughout my career on serving others and doing it in a way where I feel like I can have the most impact. I know that, as I've gone through my career, sometimes people have maybe not liked the decisions I've made, the offices I've run for, and I guess that's on them to explain their feelings.
7 years as state legislator, 5 years as Montgomery County Commissioner, 6 years as AG, 3.5 years as governor. In profiles, when the words calculating, ruthless, strategic come up over and over again, I thought, is there really any way you could be here today if that wasn't somewhat true?
I mean, look, if I were calculating, I would have run for all those other offices folks were pushing me toward. What my calculus has been, how do I stay in this arena? How do I keep doing public service? How do I do it in a way that's most impactful? And how do I do it in a way that still allows me to have that balance in life where I can be a good dad, a good husband, and be present in my family's lives? So I suppose if that is what one might consider calculating, right? Sure. But my focus every step of the way has been on service to others, and still being a good dad and being connected to my family.
Well, let's talk about that service because you've compared your leadership strategy to playing point guard in high school.
Yeah.
Being the floor general.
When we won a championship.
The distributor, I know you did.
Yep.
What was it? Shaps and Taps?
Shaps and Taps, yeah.
Which I just love. And I want to talk about how you operate. When those ambitions become so large, and you write about this in the book a little bit, what becomes small?
One of the things, I've been pretty honest about this, one of the things I struggle with is how I end up getting all in this work. And it consumes me in section after section, particularly the work I did as Attorney General, unearthing thousands of cases of abuse of children at the hands of predator priests. When you are doing this kind of work and digging deep into both the material, right, and in yourself to find the strength to plow through, it is very hard to maintain that balance of being a good dad, being a husband, being home, for bedtime and bath time and all that, and still pour everything you've got into what is really important work for the people that you took an oath of office to serve. And so there are these moments where you sort of get out of balance. And I frankly am very hard on myself when I'm like that. I get upset with myself that I didn't make it home for bedtime. I get upset with myself that I missed one of the kids' games. But
are you someone who, what do you do? Do you drive in the car alone angrily? Do you yell to yourself? Do you talk to yourself out loud? How do you work that out? You don't go to therapy, I've heard.
No, I feel, and I'm happy to talk about that too, but I feel a sense of like guilt that I just kind of carry with me.
But I do wonder how you do grapple with that.
I sometimes, when my head hits the pillow at night and I'm sort of going through the day and how kind of everything went, I'll sort of go back and say, damn, I could have done that different. Or I could have left that meeting and ran out to Max's game and come right back, and finish the work. Or, you know what, I didn't need to pick up that call.
Yeah.
And I could have stayed focused on dinner or something like that. Lori tells me I kind of beat myself up too much on this stuff, but I'm really devoted to the work. I'm also really devoted to trying to be a good dad and be present, and for my family. And every day, I think I get a little bit better at it. Certainly not perfect.
Speaking of that case with the Catholic Church,
I
want to talk about why that was so personal for you. That's when you were Attorney General, and there was just rampant sexual abuse in the clergy.
Yeah,
and you took that head on.
Yeah,
and you've said over and over again that based on your childhood, you understood and felt deeply and intimately that pain, and that suffering. Tell me about how and why you pursued that.
My dad was a great example to me of protecting kids. He was not only a pediatrician that would, fix their broken leg or make them feel better when they were sick, but my dad was also called on as the expert witness by the local prosecutors every time they had child abuse cases.
And you'd go with them to court.
Yeah, I'd be around them. I'd know what was, going on. And, you don't fully understand it when you're a little kid. Why would any adult hurt a child, right? But I knew my dad was on the good side. He was there to protect kids, and he modeled that behavior. I also, without knowing, frankly, a lot of details, knew my mom had a rough childhood. And so it was sort of knowing that I could do something about that in the position I was in as Attorney General was important not only for the victims that I was fighting for as AG, but in some ways it was, picking up on the way my folks raised me, the behaviors they modeled and the challenges they had. And I felt this just added, I don't know if responsibility is the right word, but this kind of added burden to kind of do it for them too. I've also just, as a policymaker, as a legislator, was really involved in policy to protect kids and, help set up some place called Mission Kids where abused children would go to be protected, get help, make sure the perpetrator was held accountable. And I just think throughout my life, it's been a theme throughout. And so when I was finally in this position as chief law enforcement officer of our Commonwealth, we confronted these stories of horrific abuse and investigated them and then found the bad guys, I was just motivated to do something about it and just pressed myself, my team, as hard as I could to get us to the point where we could unearth these horrors and give these survivors something back, which is the truth, to come out publicly and for them to maybe feel some protection from an institution after they had been failed by institutions throughout their whole lives.
Is there a conversation either with the pastor or one of the folks abused that you hold on to?
Many. When we were going through the investigation, it was in something called a grand jury. And a grand jury, it's kind of different every state, but there's some similarities in that it is completely secret. By the way, I can't even talk to my wife about it. A number of victims had gone and either testified for the grand jury or had information shared with the grand jury. They knew they had done that. And they didn't have the burden of secrecy under the law. And even after they had shared their story, for a while, they didn't see any action from it. They didn't see someone arrested. They didn't see a report come out. They didn't see me talking about it because I couldn't. I was barred by law from doing so at the time. And there was a moment where I wanted the victims who had been so brave to just know both they weren't alone, there were other victims, and that I heard them, even if I couldn't really share a lot with them. And so I did something that I think some folks on my staff were not totally sure about. I invited them, the victims, to my office, not all of them, but maybe, 15 or 20 or so. And it was, to this day, the most emotional meeting I've ever been in. Some of them met each other for the first time. Many of them shared the stories of what happened to them. And all I could keep saying to them was, I am fighting for you. I couldn't tell them where the process stood. I was not allowed legally to.
And did you share anything about your childhood in those conversations?
No, I listened. I did a lot of listening. And I made clear to them that I was fighting for them. It would be months later when we finally were able to say, see, I was, and here's the grand jury report, and here's the arrests, and here's the priests who were going to jail. And obviously then they knew that we had been working on. But at that moment, I think they were worried that this institution, the Attorney General's office, was going to fail them just like the Catholic Church did, just like the local police officer did, just like other institutions did. And that meeting with those survivors hangs with me to this day. And I still feel a connection to them that's incredibly deep.
You write in the book, you have to believe you are above the law in order to purposefully keep evidence of crimes and their cover-ups. You have to feel there is no way you will get caught or face any kind of punishment, which is what the Catholic Church did. And I read that, and the first thing I thought of was everything that's been happening with the Epstein files.
Yeah.
The amount of evidence that is stacking up. Now, I know you went to night school, got your law degree from Georgetown, attorney general. I haven't heard you speak about the Epstein files in any detail. I'm wondering, do you see any world in which someone is going to be held accountable for the crimes committed?
I'm going to answer that question, but I want to just kind of come back to the church piece for a second,
Sure.
because there are shocking similarities
Yeah.
between these two cases.
I'm glad you saw it too, because it blew my mind when I read your book.
Obviously, you're talking about adults abusing children.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about powerful adults abusing children. In the case of Epstein, it's powerful rich folks. In the case of the church, I mean, arguably the Catholic Church is the most powerful organization on the face of the earth,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they were both using those positions of power to harm children and then to cover it up. And then what's most shocking, in the case of the Catholic Church, they wrote it all down. And they put those files, quite literally in filing cabinets, in the offices of the bishops. Now fast forward to where we are today. Epstein, in a different way here, but kept the files, kept the emails, kept the logs of who was there, who was abusing these children. One of the most frustrating things for me to this day is that the statute of limitations, that's the amount of time you can bring criminal charges, had passed in so many cases of these Catholic priests and the bishops that covered it up. And by the way, that cover-up went all the way to the Vatican. In the Epstein case, there's too many powerful people who have either been protected because of statute of limitations or just by the fact that they're powerful. And that is what's wrong with where our country is today. The powerful, the people with money, they have the ability to skirt the rules.
Mm.
They have the ability to delay justice to the point where they're now out of the reach of the arm of justice. Or maybe they control the Justice Department, as is the case with this current administration.
Mm.
And so to answer your question, I hope that because of the sunshine that's coming in, thanks, by the way, to one of your congressmen from California, Ro Khanna, who fought to get these files released, hopefully with some of this sunshine, there will be more accountability. I don't know that that will happen during the Trump administration.
Do you think it will happen during the Trump administration?
I don't think it is likely to happen during the Trump administration, given the fact that the president of the United States, who brags about his control of the DOJ, who hangs a banner up over the DOJ of his picture, I don't think he's looking for accountability here because, by the way, if there's accountability, in some form or fashion, he'll be implicated in that. But I think it has to be something going forward, whoever comes after Donald Trump, that accountability be brought for these poor souls that were abused.
I want to expand the focus of our talk and hit on some areas that you cover in the book.
Yeah.
You know, in Kamala Harris's memoir, 107 Days, she makes reference to the term genocide, Josh, which was used to smear you while you were being vetted. And in your book, you write about her team asking you questions like whether you've ever been an agent of the Israeli government. And I read that and I thought, how the hell does someone answer a question like that?
Well, I said no. I mean, look, I was honored and humbled to be even considered for vice presidency.
It's an honor just to be nominated. I understand.
And by the way, on such a truncated, time frame too, it's intense. I mean, I think it would typically be intense. It's even more intense when it's so quick. And when you submit to that process, you submit to all their questioning and any information they want. And I provided that. Obviously, when you're going through that process, you can't talk about it. And the former vice president ultimately wrote a book about her 107 days and I guess touched on this in her process. And for me, this book was my opportunity to share what I was feeling, what I was going through. And by the way, it was also an opportunity, I hope, for the reader to see, much like my decision not to run for Congress, much like my decision not to run for the U.S. Senate, and my decision to pull out of consideration for the vice presidency, I wanted the reader to see what motivates me when I'm considering how to serve and what job I think is the best way to help. You talked before about, my drive and how some people view that negatively. Yeah, I'm driven to serve, and I'm driven to serve in a way that helps others in the way that I can best use my abilities to help others. And ultimately, what I concluded in that process is that was not the best way for me to use, my abilities to help others.
But was that an appropriate question to be asked?
Look, I think in that context, in that moment, maybe not the question that should be asked. But at the end of the day, I agreed to submit to all their questioning and answer them, and I did.
Of course. But, reading her book, did you read the passages in which she described your private exchanges?
No, I didn't read.
You didn't read the book?
No, I read some accounts of it, though.
And you thought what?
I mean, she relied on an aide, I guess, to give her some information that completely misrepresented the conversation we had.
Yeah. Well, in the book, she says, every day as president, I'll have 99 problems and my VP can't be one.
Yeah.
Then in your book, when you write about the chapter of VP, it's titled 99 Problems.
Yeah. I never imagined Jay-Z would come up.
It doesn't take Columbo to figure out that there's some back and forth here.
No, I would just say, as it relates to what you just said there, to this day, I am grateful to the former vice president for her candor.
Yes.
And I was candid right back. And I hope she was grateful for me being candid. We were sitting at a table roughly this far apart and had a really honest discussion.
You write that these questions that our team asked you suggested to you that, quote, they didn't really understand where the people who would decide this presidential election really were. What did you mean by that? Now, what do you think the Harris team didn't understand about the electorate? Because the electorate's what matters here.
Yeah.
So tell me about what you think they did not understand fundamentally.
And just a point of clarification, what I was referring to there are the questions they were asking me about policy, not the thing about the agent, being an Israeli agent.
Well, there was all kinds of
yeah. But they asked a lot of questions about why I took the positions I did on public safety. We talked about one of them earlier. Why I took the position I took on energy, why I took the positions I took on cutting taxes to spur economic growth, why I took the position I did that I kind of thought everybody got a little bit wrong during COVID, which, by the way, of course, no one had ever been through it, right? And hindsight's 2020 in that case. And they sort of questioned, well, why would you have those positions? They're different than the vice president. And I tried to make the point that I think the fact that we had different views is actually a sign of strength, right? And that I want to be surrounded by people every day who think differently than me, who challenge me. My entire senior staff are people who can sit around the table with me and tell me why I'm wrong and debate issues with me. And sure, I get to make the final call, but I want to make that call with the benefit of different thoughts and different opinions.
And you think they wanted uniformity?
Yeah, and in the context of this campaign, before you get to govern, you got to get one more vote than the other guy. And to get one more vote than the other guy, it needs to be in basically 7 swing states, of which Pennsylvania is the top or the biggest of all. And so I was just sort of merely making the point here that I think it is something that should have been viewed as a sign of strength that you kind of expand your views to reach out to the people that ultimately were going to decide this election.
You write in the book, I'm a fixer by nature and nurture because of how I grew up and the realities of my job. If the Democratic Party is in repair, how would you go about fixing it? What do you see as the central problems plaguing the Democrats?
Well, let me speak to it from the standpoint of being the governor of this, the swingiest swing state, or however you want to define it, and a proud Democrat. I think what frustrates so many people today, and by the way, I don't think this is unique to people who identify as Democrats. I think it's true of many Republicans, independents as well. They're frustrated that they see their government not working for them, not solving their problems. I think it's true sometimes at a school board level, for a governor, for a president, and jobs in between. And so to me, every single day, my job is to put points on the board for people, to show my work, to show how your life was made a little bit better because I came to the office that day and fought for you. So I would argue, I would posit that the way we all need to move in the future, if we want to repair our politics, is to be able to show our work and show how our work made someone's life better, made their kids' school a little bit better, cut their taxes or put a few bucks back in their pockets to make things a little bit more affordable. Hired a few more cops, invested a little bit more in violence prevention so that crime came down in their neighborhood so their kid could go out and play. Those are tangible things.
So it's a messaging problem.
I don't know. I would respectfully disagree with you. I think it's less about messaging and more about doing. But
the Biden era did a bunch of things that I think both of us are in favor of, and it took forever for them to communicate that. And in many cases, people don't even know about the policies put forth.
I would argue, again, just super respectfully, that
you don't even have to be respectful.
No, but I appreciate your question, and I don't want to seem argumentative. It's, sure, some of it is messaging, but it's also the doing
Just
part.
doing it. Okay.
Passing the bill is one thing.
Okay.
Driving the dollars out to make something happen is the second step. And then the third step is, hey, we did that for you.
Yes. You on the I-95.
Right. Too often times we never got to that second step of driving the money out or making the policy change so people could see something different in their lives. GSD.
But people feel, and you know this. I mean, there's a new NBC poll that said the only topics that were less popular than AI were the Democratic Party and Iran.
Is that right?
Yes.
I didn't see the poll.
There's a feeling that institutions are failing us, that the middle class is falling out. There's a disdain and a distrust of institutions I know you hold dear to work and protect, that you believe in. But right now, that is the sentiment. I mean, I'm hosting this show for a decade. I have never heard people talk about checking out, shutting the laptop, despair, despondency, and a belief that
pulling the covers over,
belief that it cannot get better.
So I believe in public service. I believe that government can be a force for good in people's lives. By the way, otherwise I wouldn't be doing this work. At the same time, I've also seen how too many of these governmental institutions have failed too many people.
That's what I want to know. How do you think the Democratic Party has failed?
I think we have failed to deliver tangible results for people. Let me explain further. I think for too many parents, they feel like their kid's school hasn't gotten better over generations. In Pennsylvania, we've increased our investment by 30% in public education. Test scores are up, graduation rates are up, truancy is down, the number of teachers is rising. I think too often times people see violence in their communities and don't believe government gives a damn about solving it. We've driven down the level of crime across Pennsylvania. I think too many people grow up in neighborhoods that they love, but they feel like they're not going to be able to get a job there. And so they leave. Pennsylvania, we've got the only growing economy in the Northeast. We're creating more jobs than all but 3 other states. Our unemployment rate is below the national rate 32 straight months. We've grown jobs. We've cut taxes 7 times, and we've put more people to work. Those are tangible things that people see their lives getting better. And that is what I think ultimately any successful political party, and I hope that the most successful one, of course, would be the Democratic Party. That's what we need to be for. Tangible things that make people's lives better and an ability to actually deliver them for, to folks, whether it's their kitchen tables, their schools, or their communities.
What do you think are the big animating needs of Democratic voters right now? How do you see that?
Look, I think right now, at this moment,
right now,
folks are scared to death, because of Donald Trump's chaos and cruelty and corruption. They see, they question whether or not our democracy is going to survive this. They see their freedoms being eviscerated by Donald Trump and a party that has bullshitted us for years, that they're the party of freedom and liberty and virtue. That's complete horseshit. I think we're seeing that. And so I think people are scared. And so big part of what I do, by the way, in the state where it all began, the birthplace of democracy, is assure them that I'm going to protect their right to vote. I'm going to protect a woman's right to make decisions over her own body, protect 2 people's ability to marry who they love. I think those fundamental freedoms people are scared to death over. At the same time, shit costs too much. And it costs too much because of Donald Trump, because of his tariffs, because of the war in Iran, which is now jacking up. By the way, Price of gas went up 39 cents in 6 days in Pennsylvania. I know it's gone up, significantly more, in other places. So we are seeing things cost more because of Donald Trump, and folks are concerned about that. We lost in Pennsylvania in the first 6 weeks of this year, 90,000 people lost health care because of Donald Trump's cruelty. You think about that. Not only do you not have health care, but now when you do get sick, everything costs more. So your food costs more. The goods you're buying cost more. Your gas costs more. Everything costs more under Donald Trump. So when you ask me, what are the things on people's minds? I think folks are scared about losing our democracy and losing their freedoms. They're concerned about the rising costs of so many things. And I think that is certainly the people of Pennsylvania who I talk to, that's front and center on their minds.
And looking through your career and pouring hours and hours into all that you have given your life to, one thing that stands out to me is your willingness, not just willingness, your capacity to work in a bipartisan manner.
Yeah.
You reach across the aisle, you make things work, you make compromises where you have to get things done. I respect that tremendously.
Thank you.
Where I'm bothered and something that's just been on my mind and has been killing me since I started reading about you that I can't square away, so I want to ask you.
Sure.
Is you and Senator John Fetterman are the two most highly elected the highest rated Democratic officials in the state of Pennsylvania. The Commonwealth delivered you both there to do this job, to represent them at the highest annals of power. And yet he writes in his book, Unfettered, that the two of you no longer speak. Why?
Yeah, you got to ask him. I mean, I've got no beef with John. I didn't write about him in my book other than, where we would pass an event or what have you.
But you're one half of an equation.
Yeah, I don't know. John, I think, look, John's got a lot of questions that I think he needs to answer for the people of Pennsylvania. I think there's a lot of people who want to know kind of what happened, why he does some of the things he does. So maybe you can add this to the list of questions for him.
I will add it. But
I will tell you, when it comes to governing, I mean, we were in a meeting not too long ago with Secretary Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, about an important transportation issue in our state. I mean, our staffs work together. Like, look, if I need to go to a U.S. Senator for something, of course we're going to go to his office, work with him, work with our other senators, Senator McCormick, and we're going to do what we got to do to help Pennsylvania. The most important thing here is me being able to deliver something for
to the people of Pennsylvania.
And if it requires me to work with John, with Dave, with anybody else, I'll do that.
But the two of you not speaking is not helpful for the people of Pennsylvania.
Again, it's not really my beef here. So
you're open to talking. Is that what you're saying?
Of course. I talk to anybody.
Should we bring him to the table? Okay. I'm asking not in a gotcha way, but in a sincere, this. After all you've done for the Commonwealth, when people hear that, when they hear that you two don't speak anymore, how does that assuage their fears that the system is broken? And you know that's a thing that people feel.
Yeah, and I appreciate your question, and I think it is a fair question. I think you're just directing it at the wrong guy. I've got no beef here.
Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna ask him that question too.
There you go.
We're gonna forward that on to him. When it comes to Trump, and I appreciate you answering.
Sure.
You said we have to fight for something. In order to fight effectively for what we believe in, we need to provide an alternative that actually works. And I was thinking, I think we can both agree, President Obama was one of the great unifiers of the Democratic Party.
Oh, yeah.
You were
not just the Democratic Party
of the country.
Yeah.
You were an early adopter. You
first one in Pennsylvania.
I heard you backed him. I'm curious because I've gone back to the game tape.
Oh boy.
I've looked at your earlier speeches. I've looked at your newer speeches. The comparison that people make, the oratorical similarities between between you and President Obama. What do you mean I'm going to do this?
I don't hear it, but go ahead, finish your
It's going to be put in the video. The people will be able to decide themselves.
2.5 centuries ago in Philadelphia, a band of patriots declared their independence from a king and set ourselves on a path of self-determination. Generation after generation, has embraced that responsibility. Ordinary Americans rising up, demanding more, seeking justice. And in every chapter of our American story, we've made progress and advanced the cause of freedom.
Now, let me ask you. I've taken some from Philadelphia's own Terry Gross. Kobe took from Jordan.
Oh. You're a Terry Gross guy. Unbelievable NPR voice right there.
I like Dick Cavett.
Yeah.
I like Studs Terkel. Kobe took from Jordan. Isn't it possible that you took some of it, the cadence, the mannerisms, from President Obama?
I don't. It's funny about, I guess it was, I don't know, a year or so ago, someone kind of made that joke or that comment or whatever.
I know you're like upset that I'm bringing this up.
No, I'm not. I'm really not. I don't hear it.
Mm-hmm.
I am able to say to you here, I mean, I think he is the greatest orator of my lifetime,
Mm-hmm.
bar none. And, you know, my formative years of politics largely were shaped by President Obama. And I feel blessed to be able to consider him a friend today, which is like an extraordinary thing and a blessing I feel like I have in my life. I don't set out to sound like him. There's only one. I think we have a different rhythm and cadence and different approach, you know, in our speaking style, but I guess you be the judge. One thing I try to do when I speak is to not be sort of scripted.
Yeah.
Right? I don't rarely do I get up and like to read a speech, right? Now a budget address or what you know, we call it a budget address, like our State of the State address. That's sort of a different thing. But I feel that I'm much better getting up with an index card with kind of the 3 or 4 points I'm trying to make or someone I've got to recognize and just speaking from the heart. And so what you're getting from me when I'm up behind the podium is how I feel, what I'm thinking at that moment. My brain's kind of working while words are coming out of my mouth. And
I've seen a lot of your press conferences. They have at times, you know, like a Greg Popovich kind of feel to them.
Pop.
Where like someone asks a question, you just get annoyed and you give a little smirk. You go, Jim, you know I'm not going to answer that. Kind of what you did to me with the Fetterman
Pop thing or an Obama thing?
It's a combo. I think you're influenced by both.
Oh my God, I got Pop and Obama now?
I think these are good influences.
Wow.
This is what you did to me when I brought up Fetterman, by the way. You gave me that smirk and said, no.
By the way, Pop is, I mean, just maybe the greatest. I think he and Steve Kerr probably up there is, you know, 1 and 1A in terms of greatest coaches of my lifetime.
You and President Obama, one-on-one, who wins?
Now? I mean, I don't think he plays much anymore.
He's a little bit retired from a game of basketball,
yeah.
but if you two had to play.
I don't know how quick he is anymore. So here's the thing. Look, when I go out and play now, Lori's like, just don't get hurt. I'm like, why are you cheering me on to win? She's like, just don't like pop the Achilles or, you know, break something.
That's the worst thing you could say.
It's the worst.
Jesus.
I don't play as much anymore. If I could get open for a mid-range jumper, I'm deadly for mid-range. The problem I'd have is he's taller than me. He's long.
Yes.
And so I imagine if I couldn't shake him, if I'm not fast enough to shake him, which I'm probably not, he'd be able to block even that mid-range jumper.
So you need someone to set a little pick and pop play.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, man, he's in shape. He's working out every day.
You seem like you're in good shape.
Decent, but you know.
I started Talk Easy back in 2016 after years of film journalism. Even as an independent podcast, often recording out of people's homes, it suddenly felt like running a business. The show has grown a lot in the past decade, but it always took a village. That's why I think so many new businesses choose Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. From brands just getting started to global names like Aloe and Heinz, Shopify gives you a foundation that actually holds. You can build a beautiful online store with hundreds of ready-to-use templates that match your style. And when it's time to grow, Shopify handles all the heavy lifting. Inventory, payment, analytics, shipping, returns, all in one place, making your life easier and your operations smoother. And if you get stuck, they got 24/7 customer support, so you're not figuring it out alone. Starting something will always feel daunting, but the right partner makes it possible. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/talkeasy. Go to shopify.com/talkeasy. That's shopify.com/talkeasy. Has this been all right so far?
This is great.
It's been fair?
Yeah, enjoy it.
Okay. You know,
Is this where it turns now? Now that you
Yeah. Now you're really fucked. I think we can agree that before we look to 2028, Democrats need to focus on 2026.
Without question.
We got big midterms.
Everybody, not just Democrats.
That's right. And you're on the ballot this November for governor.
Yeah.
If the people of Pennsylvania elect you, and it's likely they will, do you commit to finishing your full second term?
Yeah, look, the only thing I'm focused on is running for governor, period. And I will tell you, I think as we look forward, our party needs to have an honest debate about what direction we go in.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, this is way deeper than what you were asking me. I could make an argument that we sort of haven't had it out as a party, like ideologically working through issues. What are we for? Maybe not since the Clinton election in 92. And follow me on this. So we had an ideological battle in 92 that resulted in Bill Clinton, pretty unlikely candidate at the time, becoming the nominee. Fast forward to our next victorious president, the great Barack Obama, and I mean this no way to be disrespectful. In many ways, he didn't sort of lead an ideological movement. He was a unique figure and a unique person that was able to bring the country together post-Iraq War, post-George W. Bush, but hardly sort of this big ideological battle.
Mm-hmm.
Our next victorious president was Joe Biden, and that was really just how the hell do we get out of Donald Trump and let's do this. So
that one felt like a trauma response.
Right. But again, not taking anything away from President Biden, that was not a big ideological battle. We need to have that. And so here's what I can tell you with absolute certainty. I'm going to be part of that. And I think the sensibilities that we bring from Pennsylvania, the GSD approach we bring, I want to be a part of that. And I'm going to be doing that while I serve, God willing, as a reelected governor of Pennsylvania.
Look, I think we can both sit here and admit that it's very likely you're going to win.
I appreciate your...
Come on.
See, here's the thing. I can't accept that because I'm neurotic.
Yeah, I know. And you think I'm going to jinx you or something.
I always run like I'm like 50
I'm neurotic
points behind.
Too, but you still didn't really answer the question. Do you plan to finish out your second term?
That's the only thing I'm planning to do.
That's
is
your
be
only
the governor
plan?
of Pennsylvania. Absolutely.
Is that sincere?
And no, it's not my only plan. You heard what I said before. I want to be a part of this dialogue that we need to have as a part. So I answer your question.
It feels like you're bullshitting me a little bit.
It's where I am. It's the truth. It's how I feel. And as I look at you today, I got the greatest job in the world. I love being governor, and I want to continue doing that for a good long while. And hopefully the good people of Pennsylvania give me 4 more years to do it.
You write in the book, when I got my start, it didn't feel like it feels today. And that was, you talking about how we got in this Trump era and the way politics have changed since you started out. And, I'm thinking about where we started this conversation. Back to the residence, that was firebombed. And almost exactly a year ago.
Yeah.
Passover's coming up.
Yeah.
I wonder how you've been thinking about this job and a life of service, given all the bloodshed that we've seen this past year, the rising tensions, the uptick in political violence, the increase in anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
That's real. The systemic distrust of institutions.
Yeah.
You told your kid this was the first time I felt like I couldn't tell them that I could protect them, that everything was going to be okay. What do you say now?
I think our politics have been defined over the last 10 years by chaos and cruelty and corruption. That's what Donald Trump has brought to this country over the last decade. Even when he wasn't in office, he was still affecting our politics. He was still making it more cruel, more unjust. I set out to write this book. You noted that it started the first chapter about the arson attack, but that happened 5 months into me writing the book. The first chapter, which ultimately folds in later, was really about the people that I feel blessed to interact with every day. Why am I telling you about that? Because I set out to write this book to highlight the light that those people shine every day in an increasingly dark world. There is a real disconnect between where our politicians are, Exhibit A being Donald Trump, chaos, cruelty, corruption, and the goodness that I see in the people every day that I get to interact with. So where are we right now? I really think we're at this sort of fork in the road, or whatever, if you want to call it, where we kind of have to make a decision. Are our politics going to define the people in this country? Or are we going to figure out a way for the goodness of the people to better define our politics and who the politicians are that they send into these jobs? And I think we are at a crossroads, fork in the road, whatever you want to call it. And I'm doing my best in this book and in the work I do every day to highlight those people that are making a difference in their world, who are actually kind of, and I write about this in the end, who are doing the work that our founders kind of called on us to do when we declared our independence 250 years ago, and then a roughly decade later wrote a constitution, and all of it was left unfinished to successive generations. And each generation's kind of done that hard work. This is our moment now to try and come back from this cruelty and this chaos and this corruption. And I'm going to do everything in my power to do that.
Would a young, politically minded Josh Shapiro, we've talked about that kid, would he have chosen a life of service in today's political climate?
I would hope so. But I didn't choose this life at 21 or 22.
Right. In some ways it chose you.
Yeah, but also I didn't imagine I was going to be in this job. I didn't imagine I was going to be in sort of elected office. And so I'm not sure I sort of set out at 20 whatever to say, this is the path I'm going. Now, certainly I decided to run for office.
Yes.
But even when I ran for state rep, I wasn't imagining I'd be sitting here as governor of Pennsylvania talking to you and in this environment. I mean,
but the environment is the risks at hand, the very real scene that you set for us, and that your family endured, that we talked about in the beginning of this episode. That's no joke. I mean, that's terrifying.
Yeah,
and it doesn't seem to be getting better. So when I'm asking a young Josh Shapiro, I'm theoretically, of course,
would I encourage my kids to do this?
Yes. Would you encourage your kids to get involved?
Yes. And in many ways, each of them are. Because if they don't, and if I walk away, and if my family and I and our family meeting decide not to run for re-election because it's just too much, right? Just too overwhelming, then the bad guys win. Then the chaos and the cruelty and the corruption, that takes further root, and then it's harder to come back from that. There's a passage from the Talmud, it's called, but from loosely you'd refer to that as scripture.
My own faith teaches me that no one is required to complete the task, but neither are we free to refrain from it.
Yeah. I cite that wherever I am.
It was in your inaugural address in 2023 as governor.
Yeah. I've cited it in mosques and churches and Kiwanis clubs and in my inaugural address. And I think it's never been more true than it is today. And really what that means, you don't have to be Jewish, you don't have to be religious to understand it. It means each of us has a responsibility to get off the sidelines, get in the game, do our part. And right now, if I don't do my part, if people who think, I'm not suggesting we agree on everything, but I think we both understand the value of service. People don't think like us. If we walk away from this at this moment, I think the dark forces win. And I am unwilling to let that happen.
And that violence, you're undaunted by it?
I refuse to live in fear. And look, I am blessed. Where I go, the state police of Pennsylvania go with me. And I'm blessed to have their protection. A lot of people don't have that. But even without that, I'm not walking away. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to let those dark forces sort of define me or define these times. I think we have a real responsibility to fight back against what Donald Trump is trying to do to this country, what his sycophants and his rubber stamps are doing to this country. And that is why I'm in this fight. And that's why I'm not going to walk away.
Well, I want to say here, I really do appreciate the time and your commitment to service. Even if we don't agree on everything, I think the reason you're in the fight, I believe in it, and I'm grateful for your time.
Appreciate it. I'm grateful for yours. You know, in this era where our media gets so fragmented, divided, and where there's so much distrust of our media, people come to you and listen to the conversations you have, and they trust you. And that trust you have with the people who are listening or watching or what have you, that is the most valuable commodity for you in the job that you're in, and you've got it. And I appreciate how hard you've worked to build that up. And I look forward to hopefully having another conversation along the way and continuing this important dialogue and watching you continue to build trust with your listeners.
All right. Well, we play basketball every Sunday. If you need a pickup game, you're welcome to join.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you do with the hair during the basketball game? You pull it back?
See, I knew
do
you're
you
gonna
go sweatband
or
like
it's a little bit of both.
1970s,
little
like,
70s, yeah, little 76 or 70s, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, it's good. Governor Shapiro, thank you for the time, sir.
Great to be with you. Thanks.